Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I am working on a tag for the mid-month mini mission, so get comfy and let's get crafty. This is the prompt for the mini mission. It is cutting corners, and it came out the same time I got a very important piece of mail. So watch what I do with it. So here I've printed out my prompt for my tag for the month of May. This is May 2023. I have my tag. It's about 8.5 inches by 4 inches. And the very important piece of mail I got was a wedding invitation for a friend. And I loved the papers in her announcement. So I am going to use this beautifully designed by somebody else collaboration, words are hard, to cut corners to make a fabulous tag, including the wax seal. I have put post-it notes over addresses because you don't need to see that information, but I'm even going to use the front of the envelope and the stamp because I just love it. All right, so here's my tag front. I'm going to go ahead and start putting down some of this front of the envelope. First thing I'm going to do is tear out that stamp. It's not anything like super... It is a specialty stamp. It says love. It has the same colors of blue and pink that the focal image has, but it's, you know, it's not worth anything because it's been canceled. This flower is the liner page to the envelope, and I very painstakingly removed it from the inner flap of the envelope. I did have to cut it a little bit and then tape it back together. And I am, instead of cutting it and having it have harsh edges, I'm using my water brush to water cut this paper. Now this is a really thick, almost fabric feeling paper. So it does take a lot of water to get it saturated enough to tear, but I love how this looks in the end. It's very organic. It's very natural looking. And if I was trying to blend the edges onto a page, this would be the perfect way to do it, because throwing a little bit of, I would do a whiter margin, of course, but then throwing a little bit of coordinating acrylic paint and you would never know the difference. So obviously this peony is going to be way too big for my tag, but I'm going to fill in the background space with the blue from the envelope. And so I've got the stamp piece ripped off already, and I decided I want to put it there at the top of the tag. And I'm going to use this Yoo-Hoo collage glue stick. And I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper because I don't want to get glue all over my work surface, because you know I will. You know I will. Anyways, I'm going to add glue to the back of this stamp and stamp it down, but I don't want to cover up the hole on my tag yet. So I'm just going to slide that down out of the way because I don't want to punch a hole in the stamp. So now I'm just going to start tearing apart the front of that envelope and putting some of that blue envelope paper anywhere that my tag shows underneath my peony paper. Now I do have to be very careful, and I just have to do some editing to make sure that neither my address or my friend's name and address showed up on the video. So it might look a little bit discombobulated. I tried to edit it smooth, but you know, sometimes you can just still tell. But I am just going to go ahead, and every time I'm concerned about or not knowing where I need to put the next piece of blue paper, I'm going to put that focal image back on front of the tag and then slide some paper underneath it or the glue stick underneath it. And I am in love with how this tag turned out, but I told her as soon as I got the invitation, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love your invitations. I cannot wait to see you because we do not live in the same town anymore. And oh my gosh, I'm keeping this paper forever. It is gorgeous. And that same day that I got this, I saw the video and the prompt for the mid-month mini mission. And I'm like, this is how I can keep this forever, because this is, I love it. I just love it. The paper feels so cottony. It's almost like a cotton watercolor paper. It's so luxurious. I mean, because it's a wedding invitation, it has to be, right? But, oh my goodness, so luxurious. Okay, and I cut off the bottom off camera because that was where my address was sticking out and I didn't want you to see that. And I'm just going to trim that off. And for some reason, I grabbed these little teeny tiny scissors I have on my desk for fussy cutting, instead of grabbing those long no-stick scissors I have in my drawer that would have taken this down in no time flat, but whatever. So now I have the background covered, or at least the edges of the background covered, and it's time to start adding some more texture. I'm going to pull out 2 colors of archival ink and this Stampers Anonymous Tim Holtz collection stamp set. I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one I use all the time for texture in the background of my things. And I've pulled out the Cobalt archival ink and the other blue whose name I can't remember. Let me look in my drawer and see. Cornflower. It is cornflower blue. So I'm using Cobalt and cornflower blues to add some texture to the background of my tag, even though the majority of it will be covered up. The first thing I'm going to do is use this long script stamp, and I am putting another piece of scrap paper. It's actually the paper I'm going to put on the back of the tag flipped over, but you know. And I'm not using a stamp block for this because I do not want perfect text. And I am using the top, and then over here on the left, I'm using the right side of the stamp just to get a little bit of something on there. And then I put a little bit more down that left corner. I decided to pull out this butterfly stamp. Now, I have never used the butterflies in this stamp set before, so I'm going to grab a stamp block for these because, well, they're tiny and I don't want ink on my fingers today. I mean, normally that's not a concern, but I don't want ink on my fingers today. I did stamp this 2 times, but mostly you only get like a half of each butterfly. And then I pulled out the lighter ink. So all of that other stamping was done with the Cobalt. This is the cornflower blue. And I pulled out the postmark stamp, and I'm adding 1 along the bottom, and then 1 kind of in the middle and 1 at the top of the tag. And that's enough background texture, except that I did pull out my sponge blending foam, and I am going to ink blend the edges of my tag, and that just adds a little bit of definition. In real life, it's actually not super duper noticeable because I did not go back around the front after I glued that peony down. So it just adds a little bit of texture and shading. And now it's time to add the peony, and I contemplated how to glue this down and decided to just continue to use the same Yoo-Hoo glue stick. I'm like, yeah, I didn't want to change the texture of the paper. That's one of the things I loved about it. So I am just going to grab this glue stick and mush it all over the back of this image. This glue stick was running out, so once it stopped giving me proper glue, I grabbed another one out of my drawer and continued to add adhesive to the back of my peony paper. I know that all of the edges will not, like I don't need to go clear to the edge because I'll be trimming those off. And so I'm just going to go ahead and put the peony, now that it's all glued up, on the front of my tag. I totally lost track of what I was doing there, y'all. I just stopped talking entirely because I couldn't remember what I was doing. Oh, our school just let out for the year. Our kids actually ended up getting out of school 3 days early because we did not use all of our built-in snow days, so they just gave the kids those 3 half days at the end of the year off. And it's only Friday and I'm already feeling the effects. I'm just saying. It's going to take me a minute to get used to having everybody home all the time eating all of the things. Anyway, now that I have that glued on, I did hold it down for a few minutes with my fingers. I'm going to trim that off with the proper scissors, the long no-stick scissors. I did have to go back through and put some more glue around the edges, but I did edit that out. And now I want to add the wax seal, but also I found a sentiment that I like out of my Pinterest quote board. And it says, there is always someone who can make it cheaper. Make sure it's worth the savings. And, you know, have you ever, I mean, because we're crafters, right? So we go into our favorite home design store and like, oh, I could totally make that for less than it's on sale for today. I mean, probably only if you could only do that if you really have the things. But sometimes in life, we tend to cut corners and it ends up not being successful. For example, I will tell my children tonight is your night to do the dishes. Please make sure that all of the dishes get washed, and if they cannot fit or do not belong in the dishwasher, make sure you get them washed by hand. Keep in mind that if you don't do it correctly the first time, you'll have to do it a second time. Any guesses on how many days of the week I have to have my children come back up and finish the dishes? Yeah, so if you're going to do it once right. If that was English at all. Okay, this wax seal I need to glue down with some better than glue stick glue, I think. So I pulled out my Tombow Mono glue. I'm going to hold that in place for a good solid couple of minutes until I feel like it is stuck down enough. And then I'm going to adhere this paper that I used for my stamp off and my glue off paper to the back of my tag. And I'm just going to use that glue stick again. I like these glue sticks because the glue is like 2 reasons. The glue is sticky and the cap screws on. And I almost forgot to punch my hole in the front before I glued the back on, because that would have been a mess. I would not have known where to punch the hole. I mean, okay, I could have gotten another tag and lined it up and blah, 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 blah. But it's a good thing I remembered so that I can then go ahead and punch the back out once I get the backing on, right? Yeah, so anyway, I like these glue sticks because they don't dry out. So they're super sticky, they hold the paper together well, but they don't dry out because the cap screws on. So I am just going gently. I'm not caring about alignment. I don't care if the pattern on the back is perfect or not. I just need to hold that in place until that glue has a chance to grab both pieces of paper. And then I'm going to trim that down with my long fancy scissors again. And I'm being very careful because I have the tendency when I cut fast to accidentally take a chunk out of the side or the top, or whichever side I'm cutting against, and then it's not a real pretty straight cut anymore. My tag was created out of some leftover chipboard, like the backing of a piece of pad of paper. So it's a nice sturdy tag. I am going to now go back in with my crocodile and punch the hole back through the front. And just for the sake of unity and cohesion, I am inking up the edges of the back of the card, or the tag rather, with that cornflower archival ink. And I decided to go around the prompt card as well, just because I can. Just because I can. That's all. It hides that white cardstock, or the white pattern printer paper that I don't want to look at, so just because I can. And now I'm kicking all the things that are underneath my desk. Sorry about that loud noise. Anyway, now it's time to glue that prompt card onto the back of the tag. Same glue stick. And I'm just going to put it down and hold it in place. And my initial thought was to use the actual invitation for the back of the tag, but then I would have had to have covered it up with my prompt card. So what I decided to do is punch a hole in the top of the invitation and put it on the ring with the rest of my tags. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm using my crocodile to again punch the hole in that invitation, just lining it up with the top of the tag. And then I can add it to my tag rings and it will be there with the invitation. So here I'm zooming in so you can see that super cute wax coin thingy. And thanks for hanging out. I hope you liked the video. Here's a couple more I think you might like. There's also a subscribe button there. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. Leave me a comment down below. Do you hoard pretty paper? I know I do. And thank you so much. Have a great day.